Section 10. Moreover, Mahamati, if bodhisattvas wish to understand the realm of projection, in which what grasps and what is grasped are nothing but perceptions of their own minds, they should avoid social intercourse and sleep and cultivate the discipline of mindfulness during the 3 periods of the night. And they should avoid mistaken teachings and texts, as well as the characteristics of the Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha paths, and become versed instead in the characteristics of the projections that are perceptions of their own minds. Section 11. Moreover, Mahamati, once bodhisattvas have firmly established themselves in the attributes of wisdom, they should devote themselves to the cultivation of 3 aspects of the highest Buddha knowledge. And to which 3 aspects of Buddha knowledge should they devote themselves? They are freedom from projections, the power of the vows made by all Buddhas, and the personal realization of the ultimate knowledge of Buddhas. Once their cultivation includes these, they will be able to abandon feeble-minded knowledge and reach the 8th stage of the Bodhisattva path. In the cultivation of these 3, Mahamati, freedom from projections comes from the practices of Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and followers of other paths. The power of vows, Mahamati, comes from the vows made by Buddhas of the past. And the personal realization of the ultimate knowledge of Buddhas, Mahamati, comes from remaining detached from all appearances, from obtaining the body that accompanies the samadhi of the illusory, and from entering that place where all Buddhas dwell. Mahamati, these are the 3 aspects of Buddha knowledge. Those who perfect these 3 aspects of Buddha knowledge are able to reach the realm of personal realization of the ultimate knowledge of Buddhas. Mahamati, this is why you should devote yourself to the cultivation of the 3 aspects of Buddha knowledge. Because Mahamati was aware of the thoughts of the other bodhisattvas about how to distinguish the essential teaching of Buddha knowledge, and because he was supported by the manifest power of the Tathagatas, he asked the Buddha, "Would the Bhagavan please explain how to understand the essential teaching of Buddha knowledge on the basis of which the 108 statements are to be distinguished, and on the basis of which Tathagatas, Arhats, and fully enlightened ones explain how to distinguish the individual and shared characteristics of the imagined reality into which bodhisattvas enter? For, by explaining how to distinguish imagined reality, we will be able to understand the absence of a self among beings and dharmas wherever we look. And by ridding ourselves of such projections, and by illuminating the various stages, we will transcend the bliss of the meditations of Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and followers of other paths. And we will see the inconceivable realms cultivated by Tathagatas. And we will finally let go of the 5 dharmas and the modes of reality and adorn ourselves instead with the knowledge of a Tathagata's dharma body, leave behind illusory realms, and ascend to the Tushita and Akanistha heavens of every Buddha land, where we will obtain the ever-present body of a Tathagata." Section 12. The Bhagavan told Mahamati, "There are followers of some paths attached to the projection of nothingness who imagine the non-existence of rabbit horns when what causes them ends, and that, as with the non-existence of rabbit horns, the same is true of everything else. And there are followers of other paths, Mahamati, who distinguish each and everything in terms of elements, tendencies, particles, substances, or shapes, and having seen that there are no such things as rabbit horns, become attached to the conception that ox horns exist. Mahamati, because they are given to such dualistic extremes, they don't understand what is nothing but mind, and nourish instead the projection of realms of their own conception. But such things as their body, their possessions, and the world around them are nothing but the projections of sensation. Mahamati, this is true of the existence of all things. They transcend existence and non-existence. You should not imagine such things. Mahamati, since they transcend existence and non-existence, Someone who thinks rabbit horns don't exist suffers from a misconception. They should not think that rabbit horns don't exist, because such a view would be relative. And if they were to analyze whatever does exist into the finest particles, they would not find anything there. Mahamate, because it would be outside the realm of Buddha knowledge, you should not imagine that ox horns exist. Mahamate then asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, if someone imagines something is not existing, is it because they see it as not arising that they subsequently reason, since their observation doesn't result in discrimination, it doesn't exist? The Buddha replied, Not so, Mahamate. It isn't because their observation doesn't result in its discrimination that they say something doesn't exist. And why not? It is because discriminations arise in dependence on something. They arise in dependence on horns. And because a discrimination arises in dependence on horns, they are said to be its cause. Hence, it is not because observation doesn't result in their discrimination that they say horns do not exist. Rather, it is because they are neither separate nor not separate. Mahamate, if the discrimination is separate from the horns, its occurrence is not dependent on the horns. And if it isn't separate, it is dependent on them. But no matter how minutely you analyze and examine them, you cannot find anything there. Also, because it isn't separate from the horns, it doesn't exist by itself. But if neither exists by itself, on what basis do we say it doesn't exist? Mahamate, if it doesn't exist, then the horns don't exist. But you should not think that rabbits do not have horns on the basis of observation. Mahamate, it is because there is no direct cause that arguments in favor of existence or non-existence cannot be proved. Mahamate, there are followers of other paths who are attached to such things as form and space, as having shape and location. Although they aren't able to distinguish space, they say space exists apart from form, and they thus give rise to the projection of their separateness. Mahamate, space is form. It is part of the material elements. And form is space, Mahamate. But in order to establish the existence of which supports and which is supported, they separate space and form. Although their individual characteristics differ, Mahamate, where the four material elements are present, they neither occupy space nor do they exist without space. Likewise, Mahamate, oxen are observed with horns and rabbits without horns. But, Mahamate, if you were to grind ox horns into the finest particles and didn't stop analyzing those particles for even a moment, could you say they did not exist based on what you saw? Anything else you might examine would be the same. The Bhagavan then told Mahamate Bodhisattva, You should avoid projections that view rabbit horns or ox horns, space or form as separate. You and the other bodhisattvas should reflect on projections as perceptions of your own mind. And in whatever lands you might find yourselves, teach bodhisattvas about the perceptions of their own minds.